I would say after today, it's progressing even better. But I think we were all inspired by the discussions today, and it's so wonderful having worked on this initiative for the last 5 years to see how it got a life of its own and how it inspires cities from so many and stakeholders from so many walks of life to transform urban environments. And one thing that we are most proud of are 2 projects that we launched very early on in the life of the mission, when we weren't even sure what a mission should be. It was really a learning by doing process for us. And the first of those was the Net Zero Cities mission platform. There were so many initiatives for cities out there, but what was missing was the true one-stop where cities would go to have access to resources, first of all, on climate neutrality, and to network with other climate-minded cities. So very early on, we launched this Net Zero Cities mission platform, where a lot of urban practitioners now, you know, for them it's the go-to resource on how to achieve climate neutrality. And the second thing that we launched very early on, we are very reluctant in the European Commission to add new structures, new bureaucracy, if you want to call it like that, to an orally charged, let's say, urban policy environment. But, and if you allow me to quote another American, because Minister Burduja set a precedent yesterday with Kennedy, I will refer you to the word of Kissinger. You know, he very famously said, if I want to call Europe, who do I talk to? Right? And in response to that, years later, the European Commission created the position of High Representative of Foreign Policy that unifies a certain point of view, let's say for Europe, gets everybody agreement, and makes sure that the information circulates in a very uniform and transparent manner, right? But it's somebody who has at all times the state of play in mind and how the different pieces of foreign policy across Europe work together. And now I want you to think in terms of urban policy. If you were to call one number in your country to get the state of play, to navigate between all the ministries that work on urban issues, right? All the stakeholders, to link with the private sector, which contributes 80% of greenhouse gas emissions in Europe, keep that in mind, to liaise with the NGOs, to liaise with universities, academia, what would be that one number that you would call? And this is why, very early on, we set up, through the CapaCITIES network, visualize it as cities with capital letters. We had this idea of creating in each EU member state, and some people call it a national platform, a hub, a structure, a lab. It doesn't matter in which shape it presents yourself, but you have that one point of contact that can link you then to everything urban in that context. Now, it was a pilot project for us in the beginning. We only covered 15 member states and some associated countries like Turkey. But now, as of the beginning of the next year, we will expand this very successful program by now to all European countries and to many of the associated countries that are linked to the mission. And it's not just we created these individual structures, right? Yesterday, I think we saw with our own eyes how cities learn best from other cities. And I think what's equally true is that countries learn best from other countries. And I won't speak for the colleagues here because we have, you know, representative of what I would call among the three most successful platforms in Europe. We have Sweden, we have Romania, we have Spain, and they, I think, can testify how they were able to grow faster together and learn with each other. And the last point maybe that I would like to make is that also following the discussion with Professor Moreno and talking about that first leap of faith that many mayors have to take when they engage in climate policy and so on. I think they need, first of all, guidance from a national structure that speaks their language, that understands the local realities, the cultural reality, the legal framework, the financial framework, and so on. And also a structure that tries to remove this spirit of competition we see among cities. Competition is good in certain contexts, but definitely it should not define how cities relate to each other inside the country. Collaboration should be the name of the game. Climate neutrality is not a zero-sum game. When one city gains, it's a gain for another city, because again, as Professor Moreno said, you get the initial courage that you need in your heart. You know it's the right decision for your city, but you fear backlash from the communities, right, that benefit most from it. But it's very easy to have that initial courage when you are part of a group, first of all, and second, when you are part of a national drive, right, of a push in a similar direction. So, in short, we are very proud of these two longest running, I would say, initiatives that were there. So the CapaCITIES project at the Net Zero Cities Mission Platform were there, by the way, even before we selected the mission cities. So when the mission cities arrived and were announced, these two structures were already there to receive them.
Thanks very much for underlining the importance of cooperation at national level. And Olga, Kordas, as Laura was saying, if Kissinger wants to call Sweden about sustainable cities, he's going to be calling your national platform Viable Cities. Can you tell us a little more about Viable Cities and how it supports cities in Sweden in their transition towards climate neutrality?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we were rather pioneers of the mission-oriented approach and the mission on climate neutral cities. We decided to create the kind of Viable Cities as a national platform long before the mission was launched in 2018. So already 2019, we had first nine cities with us, where we say, okay, now we are working on mission on climate neutral cities. We also defined the mission already 2019 with saying, okay, our mission is climate neutral cities by 2030, very much as a European mission, but also we added with a good life for all within planetary boundaries. And in this way, I feel our mission framing is very important, because what we say is that, so we connect clearly the climate neutral goals of climate transition to social sustainability and the people-centered approach. We also say that what we are doing with kind of limiting the climate carbon emission is that we should be within planetary boundaries. Also putting forward that it's important to think about resources and our planet biodiversity. So I think that kind of we believe that it's, so we are living in the complex world. We're living in the world with many crises, and the poly-crisis, this crisis that are kind of enhancing each other, which means that we need to have several goals in mind, and we cannot work with climate mitigation in one place, with climate adaptation in another place, and with inclusion and social questions in the third place. So within Viable Cities, we have this kind of holistic approach to the mission. And what we also done, so we created the kind of movement of the willing. For us, work on the mission is the most important, is to create the movement of cities who want to push the climate agenda, but also their local stakeholders, companies, universities, civil society organizations. And then it was really good, so we got the trust of 9 cities. So now here we have like 3 cities plus 10 cities already 2019. And at the beginning we were thinking, okay, will it be enough cities who are interested at all? And then in several years, also like 2021, we, like many cities, other cities in Sweden, we are saying, okay, you've created some exclusive club, we also want to be part of it. So we didn't need to push and saying, okay, please, other cities join us. So other cities wanted to join us. So from 2021, we are 23 cities, and we represent 40% of Sweden's population, which is huge. So, and 7 of those cities are also mission cities, so they're part of the, also like working with Net Zero Cities platform. So now, by the end of the year, we will be 40 cities. And now we also try new ways of working. So among all those 40 cities, we will also have small cities within kind of a twinning program. So if we have a kind of this thought play, 100 climate neutral cities, how do we scale up it in Europe? Because, I mean, if you have only 100 cities who are pushing the boundaries, this is not enough in Europe. So if you think national platforms, and I think that these 112 cities are representing 12% of Europe's population. So if we say, what is the scaling mechanism through national platforms? From 7 in Sweden, we will have 40, from 7 to 40. The same is in Spain, and the same we will say from 3 to plus 10, 13 then together, and it will be more. So national platforms are also amazing scaling mechanism. And just as we have a short of time, I think that the most important what we are doing in the platform, we are aligning the climate policy and action on local, national, and European level. So we are bringing in and having buy-in of like national authorities of Sweden in order to support cities transition with both funding, innovation portfolio, and also very important regulation and legislation. So we work with policy labbing, so looking for policies and legislations and regulations that should be changed in order to support cities transition. And also now we're looking for mechanism also within Net Zero Cities platforms. How can we then escalate questions that should not be solved on the national level, but on European level through the Net Zero Cities platform? And one just example to say what is that? So we are thinking plastic. So all our cities are saying, okay, what do we do with plastic? So, and this is not something that should be solved on national level. So how this plastic question would be solved? So it would be very interesting to see if Net Zero Cities would provide this kind of possibilities for the policy and regulations.
Great, so really ensuring this multi-level approach to governance. Thank you so much. Let's go to Spain, Julio Lumbreras. I'm really curious to hear as well your thoughts as the national platform Cities with a capital ES for Spain. How does the national platform there compare, and what are your reflections on this process?
Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Olga, because we are here thanks to you because of your inspiration with viable cities, and I think now it's growing. And I started with a provocative sentence, maybe. I would say that the mission won't succeed without national platforms, because as Olga said, it's the only way to scale up and to work together, right? Because we were talking here about lots of challenges, cities put there before lots of challenges, and I think we all agree that it's needed to work together, but how, right? We know what we need to do, but we don't know how to do it. And I think the national platforms or hubs or infrastructure or whatever, as Laura said, are these safe spaces where cities can make this real, can work together, right? Because when you work together, things are much easier. You also, Laura asked about engaging mayors for the 15-minute city before. So they share risk when they work together, they can learn from each other, and that's something that all of us know, but we don't know how to make real. And through these safe spaces where they can do this work, that's the way, right? So creating these safe spaces is, for us, the main issue for national platforms. And in particular, we are offering, as Olga said, multi-level governance. So also Professor Moreno talked about this important, but again, how you make multi-level governance real, right? So through these platforms, you can connect the local with the regional, with the national, and with the European level. So that's the way to make this real. We also, I think we all agree that there is a need of capabilities in cities, and when we were evaluating the proposals here, we identified this as a critical need that all cities raised, the need for more capabilities. So how you develop these capabilities, right? It's much more efficient if you develop capabilities at the national level because you share regulation, you share cultural issues, you share language. It's much easier to do this at the national level rather than at the European level, right? So this safe space can also create capabilities. Somebody talked here about the economic model. So how you can develop an economic model all together, all cities together, and they can share experiences. So this capacity building or capability building is something that we are working on. And finally, I think it's nice to talk about all these things in general, you know, the safe space, capability building, multi-level governance, but that doesn't happen if cities don't work together around challenges. And what we are doing in Spain is we are establishing challenges, and cities are collaborating in real work together. So for example, they established the challenge of massive building retrofitting in their cities. And now we have 8 cities in Spain working together to retrofit 1 million households from now till 2030, but together. So developing same tools, diagnosing together, strategizing together, gaining a scale, because it's not the same to go to a private company, to a construction company, to work in one district of one city, rather than going, okay, so we are offering a work in 8 cities together. So independent of the political party who's leading the city, independently of political cycles, this private company knows that they will work throughout 2030 in different places together, so they attract easily private sector. You gain scale, so you can do a joint procurement. For example, we are working on this. You can also change regulation if necessary. We are now fighting with very old regulation in buildings in Spain. It's not the same having one city working on this with the national government compared to working 8 cities together to change this regulation, right? You can also engage citizens in a joint way. So for example, they are developing proximity offices to citizens to do this retrofitting together with the same model. They are developing same financial instruments for the building retrofitting, and when they do this together, it's totally different. Even more, there is, in Spain, we have a figure at the municipal level called interventor. I don't know if you have this in other places. So it's the person who says okay or not to some projects, and it's like, the legal and the traditional person who stops all the projects, right? So for example, these cities, all the interventors are working together to develop the procurement processes, to develop the tenders. So it's not, I'm just a crazy city developing this, but we are all together developing this. And so no interventor can say no to this. Because if somebody says, oh, I'm going with Madrid, Barcelona, and Valencia, and Seville, it's okay, I cannot oppose to this, right? So this collective work around a challenge, and we started with this building retrofitting, but now we are working on massive deployment of charging stations in the public space to democratize access to electricity, to electric cars, because in Spain, 60% of the cars sleep on the streets. So if you don't have a parking lot, you cannot charge. So that's a problem for a massive penetration of electric cars. So they are start working on this, and they are start working also on energy communities, creating energy communities at the neighborhood level. But that's again, so there is no regulation for this. If they work together, it's much easier. So creating this safe space to really work in specific projects that are transformative, systemic together, that's the main issue.
That's it. So national platforms not only supporting cooperation, but also modeling the cooperation that they can see in the cities. For Romania, M100, we have two representatives, but perhaps Ovidiu, Cîmpean, I can come to you first. We talked about Romania as an example for how political engagement can really strengthen a national platform. And I wanted to hear more of your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think we saw also yesterday that we are having a strong political commitment, and I think this is a key for the success of our mission and for the funding, because we put this target of 1 billion euros to finance the cities in Romania in green transition, and I'm very optimistic that we will succeed to spend more than 1 billion by 2030. But coming back with what Julio said, I think that I agree that it's very important to learn from the national platform, and maybe we will pay you a visit in Madrid to see that tool of 1 million retrofitting housing and to learn from your instrument. We had also yesterday a discussion with a colleague from the Canadian government about green public acquisition, how we can prepare the industry. So everyone is doing a lot of research or a lot of forward thinking in this aspect, how we can move together to climate neutrality, and the simple fact that we know about each other, this also brings a lot of new ideas for everyone. So I think that the cooperation between national platforms, it's an obligation for us, and maybe after working together, we can have also standards at the European level and cooperation even at the international level, as I said before. So I'm very looking forward to work more with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also have on your team Elena, Simion from the National Platform in Romania.
Thank you very much. I don't think I have to say much about capacities. Thank you, Laura and European Commission, for this presentation. I think the stage now shows exactly what capacities is about. It's collaboration, network, and a safe space, building trust for this cooperation. I'm really happy as the coordinator of capacities and proud at the same time. For Romania, M100 wouldn't have existed without capacities. That's how we started. This is where everything began for us, with capacities. It's not easy, and yes, we have here 3 successful platforms, national platforms. We have more countries doing that. We have France, Austria, Turkey, starting now and following the model of M100, and that's something we look forward to, right? When we do something in one country, you want to serve the others in a way, exchange on what's happening, support each other, and I think Inspire is the greatest achievement we can get to. What else can I say about capacities? We are like 60 partners now from 15 European countries, and yes, different challenges, different national contexts, different problems, but with the network we have, we get the chance to support each other. We can get together to Greece to talk to a mayor or to an authority, because our main challenge as national platforms is to put together different governmental levels to work for the cities. That's where we want to get. Currently, we plan to extend to the entire Europe. We hope we make it. It's also a first step towards connecting to the other missions. That's how we try to do it. In different countries, it has already started. Finland has already started to work with the mission adaptation. And us as capacities, we are also extending our efforts towards the Western Balkan countries to promote the models we used for capacity building for the national platforms and to link the 2 missions, the cities, the EU cities mission and the climate adaptation mission. So we are an experimentation space, but mainly a network and a safe space to learn from each other. Shall I add something else about M100? I guess we have exactly the space to showcase what we're doing here.
Yeah, it's all very clear. Thank you so much, and great that this work is continuing to build as it spreads from city to city. And you mentioned the adaptation to climate change mission, because of course this is a separate mission from the climate neutral and smart cities, but of course there is lots in common. How does it work with the adaptation to climate change mission in terms of supporting platforms at national level?
Thank you so much. I'm the last of the panelists to take the floor for this introductory word, so I feel compelled to come also with some bad news, which is that this year the European Environment Agency launched the climate risk assessment for Europe, and it looks really bad. Europe is warming twice as much as the global average, so we're looking at living with the consequences of if we make it to 1.5 in Europe, we have to live with the consequences of 3 degrees Celsius in terms of heat waves, floods, etc., etc. Basically, the stats are showing that if we continue to exceed the 1.5 degrees as we have, this year Copernicus, our satellite here in Europe, determined that basically for 12 months in a row, this 1.5 was exceeded in Europe, we are going to lose 7% of our GDP in Europe by 2100, not to mention losses of human lives and of productive hours of work. So, mitigation continues to be our northern star in Europe. I think we can all agree to that, and climate neutrality is where we're shooting towards, but the reality is that we need to build resilience and we need to adapt, especially in times of shrinking fiscal space. Each euro that we do not spend to fix the consequences of natural disasters is a euro that we can spend on productive investments, and that's where the sister mission of the cities mission comes in. I'm one of the 15 independent board members at European level that works with the Commission in this mission. We're looking to build climate resilience and climate adaptation across Europe. The aim is by 2030 to have 150 climate resilient regions in Europe, which can be cities or which can be wider regions, 75 demonstration projects, and at the moment we have 329 signatories of the mission charter, regions from all over Europe, including 8 from Romania, 8 cities from Romania, that can now benefit from the basic support package. So basically technical assistance first to develop adaptation plans, second to identify and to write the details of clear funding projects that can be used for adaptation, and third to communicate with citizens and technical assistance to support cities and regions to engage with their citizens on these topics of adaptation. So I'm really glad that there is a national cities platform, because this makes and there are several across Europe, because this makes the life of the adaptation mission a lot easier, in the sense that we can market the tools that we have already developed within the mission, and it's now the 3rd year of the mission that we've just celebrated, to a wider variety of audiences, and we can make those available. And I think that's where the synergies can be built, but including the fact that, you know, I'm here to share the word on adaptation, which unfortunately in Romania, although we have adopted this year the national strategy on adaptation, is still very low on the agenda, and it's still very misunderstood. And we're looking at dramatic floods. I don't know if you know, but in Romania we have had this year dramatic floods. 7 people lost their lives, 7,000 households were destroyed, and it looks like the damages in just one city are exceeding in one small region are exceeding 150 million euros. But you know, I say I'm coming with bad news, but I think also with solutions. There's a wide range of solutions, cross-peer learning, tools that are readily available for cities and regions to adapt to these consequences on the platform of the mission. and all the technical assistance is available in all the national languages. So, you know, even a small city can make use of what's available, but we need to get the word out there more. And that's, you know, one of the challenges that was on the slide, was this lack of education, lack of knowledge, lack of awareness raising. So that's, I think, where we should all put our minds together and figure out how can these magnificent tools, including from many Horizon Europe projects, where Romania, through the National Meteorological Administration, is a member, and it is producing tools for cities and regions to assess their climate risks and to really figure out what kind of solutions they need to put in place for adaptation. We need to figure out how to make those more available servants in the city halls, that they can actually make use of them, and it's not just a beautiful output of a European platform or a beautiful output of a Horizon project that rests on a website and, you know, that's it. And I think this is really the biggest challenge, how to have the two worlds meet somehow and really give a life to these tools that we're producing either in the mission at EU or in other European projects.
Thank you very much, and also for underlining the gravity of the situation and the importance of this cooperation.